Hi, everyone, and welcome to the special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and Talk Nutrition to Me with Kelly Springer. Kelly, how are you? And I know you're excited about our guest today.
I really am. I can't wait to hear the story because I love media, want to do more media. This is going to be a really exciting guest. So today we have Amy Prenner, the founder of the Prenner Group, a powerhouse public relations executive who brought films, brands, and talent into the national spotlight. With decades of experience and impressive client lists from Hulu to Cirque du Soleil, Amy shares how strategic storytelling and media relationships can turn a vision into visibility. So welcome, Amy, to the podcast. Hi.
What a welcome. I feel super excited to be here.
Absolutely. Amy, tell us, just break down the story of how you got into publicity. How did that happen?
I guess you would call it a happy accident. I have been working in the entertainment business for quite some time. And ironically, I wanted to be a news reporter or a news anchor. And so I was so obsessed with it and into it at the time, which was many years ago, we won't say how long, that I actually started interviewing for jobs. And I remember getting in my car and wearing my red suit, my red news anchor suit, and like driving to places like that I'd never heard of, like Miami, Arizona. And I would get up there and I would go to meet with the news director, and they'd be like, here's a typewriter. This is your desk. This is your office. And you get a phone. And I'm like, I will never survive this. This is not my thing. So I ended up moving to LA and working for an agent who represented on-camera talent. And it paved the way for me for what worked in the business, got really bored there really quickly, moved on to a bigger talent agency called ICM that has since been acquired by another agency. I think it was WME or CAA. And I worked there for a while and learned about packaging movies and was a good foundation for me. And one of the things that it did was introduce me to production companies. And I ended up going to work for a producer who produced Sleepless in Seattle. Her name was Linda Obst. Contact, Hope Floats. And when I was starting, there was a book that she had written coming out, and there was also a movie coming out with George Clooney and Michelle Pfeiffer. I guess it doesn't get any bigger than that, called One Fine Day. So there was a lot of publicity going on, and I learned it right then and there when camera crews from Good Morning America were coming to her office. And we had sit-down interviews with Glamour and Cosmo, and I'm like, I got to do this. This is like up my alley. So that's kind of where it started. And then I started working with really young talent people had never heard of. Ben Affleck, who was coming out of Chasing Amy and on to Good Will Hunting, and Rosie Perez and Jared Leto, who wanted concert tickets, and Adrian Brody, who was like, I just want to make it, and Debbie Mazar, and a very young theater actress named Callista Flockhart, who had a show coming out called Ally McBeal. So I got like a crash course in it very quickly. And then they invited me to go to Sundance, and I went to Sundance and I just fell in love with film and started working in film. And from film, I learned television and worked at Extra, and I worked at Entertainment Tonight, and the list goes on. And then I went to work for Wheel of Fortune for 5 years, and it was an amazing experience, but they took the show on the road 1 week a year. And so it was a lot of time to be gone. And what I learned from that experience was I needed to start to figure out what was best for me. And forces of nature happened. Hurricane Katrina happened. And not only did I have to think about myself, but I had to think about the reputation of the show, how we were going to get out, what we were going to do, and kind of turn to a crisis communications person. And so we chartered buses for the production staff. And of course, Pat and Vanna at the time got out on the corporate jet. It took us 21 hours to go 200 miles to Houston, and got home, turned off on my phone, because back in the day we had to turn off our phones. And my phone started blowing up. Hi, it's Access Hollywood. Hi, it's CNN. What happened to you guys? And that was that moment where I'm like, I need to make a change. And it took me, of course, in your head, it's like anything else, you need to plan it and plot it. And about 6 months later, I started working on my own. And I've been at this 19 years now.
I'm psyched. I didn't know who you were prior to this podcast. And thank you, Neil, for this introduction. Amy, how do we work together? Like, how? So, you don't know anything about me either, right? So, I love that we're getting to know each other on a live podcast. This is really pretty wild. So, I've been in media a long time doing nutrition as a dietitian, did the Good Morning America thing. And with my daughters now both going into college, we're going to be empty nesters as of September. And I 100
Congratulations.
thanks. But I'm ready to fly. I'm ready. Everyone's, are you sad? I'm like, no. Look, I've been there for every band concert, every soccer game, every swim meet. And I'm so proud of that. But I'm ready to fly. I love media. I love television. And I know we already have 4 curated shows that are lined up, ready to go. The whole entire nation is hungry for nutrition education, and there's nothing out there yet.
I think it's a really smart place to be, because I think that people are so used to grabbing something, but they don't really know. They hear the propaganda, if you will, like, oh, go get a smoothie. It's great for you. But they don't realize how much sugar is in it and what really it contains. Or they grab a bar because it's going to satisfy them, but they don't know, pulling back the curtain, if you will. That's what we say in my world. What's really in there and what's better.
Yeah.
You're probably better off having a banana, but how would they know? And putting a face in front of it and owning some of these things is one of the things that I always do with people that I work with. You need to own things, because that will also create your own identity.
I am thrilled. I would love to see. I know there's a show in my life here. I know that there's probably multiple, but it's time. People are ready for the information. They want to be educated, and it's exciting to see. So do you by any chance know Matt Del Piano from the agent world?
I don't, but that doesn't
So
mean anything, because it's
he's Alec Baldwin's agent, and he
okay
at the one group that you were talking about.
at ICM, which is
Yeah.
done. So yeah, that's probably
He's just a local person. His dad was my principal.
Oh, that's so funny.
I know.
Wow.
One of those crazy things. But this is where it's just interesting of the world of talent and what you've been able to do, who you've been able to meet, the cool experiences I'm sure that you've been able to have, and where you're going now.
Yeah. I've actually launched a lot of podcasts. I've launched a lot of books, which nobody seems to be reading lately, which is very frustrating. As a parent myself, it's so much harder to get my 10-year-old to sit down and read a book, but he'll read a text, and I can't stand it. I've also worked with a lot of experts. I've worked with doctors. I've worked with dentists. I've worked with marketing experts. Done a lot of thought leadership. When there are times like the strike that had happened, or COVID that had happened, or the fires that impacted us in Los Angeles, you have to be able, if you're a good publicist and you're a good communicator, you have to be resilient enough to think of other things that you're good at. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. A lot of people kind of stick in one lane, as Neil knows better than anybody. You have to be able to do many things. And that's something that a lot of people don't know how to do. And where I learned that the most was when I was working at Wheel of Fortune, because there were all these different people that had been there. They called it like Jonestown, USA, because they had been there for so many years. And that place operates like a well-oiled machine. But like a lot of these people, all they knew how to do was pick out contestants, or work with prize department, or set up the travel, or clean the green room, or whatever it was. But it was like a linear, specific job. And I've had quite a few of those people. And Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, fun fact, are like sister and brother shows. Same producers, same studios next door to each other, all the things. And I've had quite a few people call me since then, like complete fish out of water, saying, what do I do? How do I start? Where do I go? Where do my skills transfer? And one of the things that I think why Neil and I get along so is because we know that the road goes this way. It doesn't just end in one particular lane. And if you think that way, then there's not a lot you can do. But I always joke and say I can do PR for this pen in my hand or this pair of glasses or this phone or the table that I'm sitting at. It doesn't matter what it is. If you know how to tell a good story, then you are good at your job. And a lot of people aren't. And especially because the media landscape has changed so much, some for the good, some for the bad. Let's just say, Kelly, you were telling me about your business and you want to be on TV. Once upon a time, a segment, you would get a 4-minute segment on Good Morning America or Today Show. Now it's 2. And the only way you would get 4 is if you paid $50,000 to $200,000 to be on there. Whereas if you had a Substack or a podcast where you could have your own voice and you could control the message, you could go on for as long as you want. And we just saw that in current events land with Taylor Swift dropping her album the other day. That's like a great case study. And I'm getting so many emails about it right now because people are like, wow, she didn't go work with a producer. She didn't do this. Yeah, maybe somebody wrote her talking points and gave her an outline of what to say, but she just made it free flowing. And because of that, it's causing people to rethink how they make announcements yet again.
Yeah. And that's where I sit. And I predicted that shift, Amy, talking to you 6 months ago, and knew it was coming. And there's only one moat left. And this is crazy because of because of AI. And that moat is your personal brand. And if people were not, and according to this one podcast I was listening to, by 2026, your personal brand is going to be worth more than Bitcoin. So basically, if you're not putting all your emphasis in building your brand, you're going to completely fall off the face of the earth because everything else can be duplicated. I could start a business tomorrow on this. I could do a business on this because of the ability and research and everything that we can do now. Anyone can create a business, but for people to know and trust you, that is where you have to put all your eggs. I'm so glad for 15 years, I focused on my personal brand till I built my clients and all this. Now I'm ready to go back out on that journey again. And that's, I think, why Amy and I are going to be working together too. And we're going to be having that conversation because ultimately it's where we go. And we were talking about this. There's a theme today, Kelly. If you notice, every time we have our show, there's a theme. And the theme today is resilience and being willing to shift and understanding. And I want your feedback on this, Kelly, when this landscape happens like this.
I think the resilience is huge. So I just was on a podcast. It just aired on our social media this week. And it was all about resilience. And I told my story of how the name Kelly's Choice came to be. And the person that was interviewing me had no idea. And so many people have reached out to me and said, I didn't know there was a story behind the name. And I'm like, oh, yeah, there's a big story behind the name. And I was through divorce and being left with 2 kids and what that looked like and living in my grandfather's apartment in where I was working. And there was a huge backstory to the name. And I wrote down, Amy, while you were talking, tell the story. And I think that I'm actually going to bring this into my media directors sitting right next to me right now, like in the next room over. But telling that story was also hard to do. I wasn't sure. And I woke up on Monday night after the podcast and I was like, should I have disclosed all of that? Should I have talked about it? And what I'm getting from across the board from my kids, seeing it, to workers, to random people coming up to me in the last couple of days, they're like, I'm so glad you told the story. Because I could have sugarcoated it. I could have been like, oh, we just started it with a collaborative of dietitians, and that's how it all started, and dietitian's choice. And I could have, but I really dove in, and it is making sense to more people. They're like, whoa, we didn't know anything.
It's you're being authentic.
Yeah.
And I live in the land of smoke and mirrors, and they look pretty on the outside and they're out there pushing whatever it is. And but on the inside, you don't really know enough about them. Thanks to social media, some people start to peel the onion back a little bit. But I think if you start out of the gate, especially if you're rebranding, relaunching, whatever you want to call it, if you come forward right away and just own it, there's so much more to it. Even I'll give you another example, plastic surgery. like Kris Jenner a couple weeks ago came forward and I had plastic surgery. And so 2 days ago, Kathy Griffin, the comedian, came out and she's like, I'm on my third plastic surgery, like a round of plastic surgery. I went to this doctor and Sia recommended it. So it's like, there is something to be said about being more authentic about your story that will make other people resonate.
Yeah. And it did. It did make me nervous. So it's interesting of having that.
It's uncomfortable. And it's not how we were brought up. It's not how we were raised. We don't go into a new business meeting and go, by the way, did you know that I'm divorced? Or by the way, did you feel like you just don't do that? It's not word vomit. It's more like it has to be part of who you are. And like, it comes out like more organically.
Wow. Listening to both of you, and I guess the whole process is to be authentic is one of the biggest things that makes you real in the new world of social media and media in general. The more real you are, the more you'll resonate with people. And so instead, if they don't believe and see that you're excited to talk about what you're doing, people aren't going to be enthusiastic about doing it. Kelly, they totally are excited when you talk about what you do to help people lose weight, but also to eat healthy and to make healthy choices. And that's why a lot of times the shorts that are on your YouTube channel, I just pull from you because you, I guess, score better than sometimes your guests do. And that's because of your ability to really speak to your audience. And that's what Amy helps people doing.
Leaning into it more.
Yes. Yeah.
And walking the talk, as they say, right? You're not just saying it just, hey, I want to have my own platform. You're actually practicing it as well. And a lot of people don't do that. We know that. And it ends up backfiring.
Yeah, it's an interesting time and where you're at. And I think just tell the story on even our patients' outcomes and telling their story and telling them, I think it's all right now about that storytelling.
It's the Wild West too, because it's an even playing field now. Anyone out there that wants to create a brand, come up with an idea about doing something, whether it's weight loss, whether it's motivation, whether it's hypnotherapy, writing a book, creating a movement, running for office, whatever that is that you are passionate about. Because mark my words, every single day somebody comes to me and they're like yesterday I got a call from a girl who was 19 years old and I'm dropping out of college to start a podcast. My parents are supportive of me. I've only gone a year to school. My dad is a well-known director. And I'm like, have you thought this through? I said, honestly, this is what you need. You need this, all the things, right? Neil, like that you would know that you would need. And I think I scared her. She goes, I started a Wix page and I've got the studio next week. And I've got through my dad, because he worked on Gilmore Girls, I've got 3 of the cast. And I'm like, yeah, but who's asking, where are you doing your research from? This website looks like I could have done it, and I don't even design websites. I started asking her all the questions, and she got back to me, and she goes, you gave me a lot to think about, and I'm putting this on ice. So I think sometimes people don't want to hear it, and you know that better than me. But it also just goes to show you that there are people like us that have that drive and that little fire. But then there are a lot of people that say it, but they don't really know that it doesn't just mean texting your friend. Or putting something on TikTok.
I was going to jump. I wanted to know what's new with you, Amy. You said, and we didn't get to talk about it. I just texted you, and that's how we back connected because I've been so swamped and busy. But Amy, what's new with you? How are you? How are you shifting in this environment? And you have some new projects you're doing. Tell us.
I've been working, obviously, I work in a lot of different lanes, but something that I leaned into post-COVID was a lot of film, independent film. And first I was taking a lot of films to festivals, and I've still been doing it. Like you name the city, I've been there. And I think that comes from my background working with Wheel of Fortune, because we would take the show on the road 3 times a year. So it's funny how things that are old are new again. The only difference is there's no newspapers anymore. But I've been working with a lot of independent filmmakers, and I've done things like take them to Comic-Con, go to Sundance. Last week, I was at the Jewish Film Festival where we had 2 back-to-back screenings of a movie, things like that. But also, I have leaned into other parts because film is linear and people aren't really going to the movies anymore, I know how to self-distribute now. If you were to create a series, I would know how to get it on iTunes and Apple and Amazon and Google.
How do we start with creating a series? If we say, okay, like I have curated 4 shows, I know exactly what we're going to do. Who would we reach out to get that filmed? And how do we get it filmed? And how do we put that together?
Well, that's a longer conversation, but I would put you together with one of my colleagues who's a producer, and she would bring on we would flesh out the idea, and then we would take it to a production company that has relationships with some of these streamers. And if they were interested, they'd probably put together a sizzle reel of some of these shows and maybe throw in a bio about you and take it to market. But one of the things I always tell people, because I've recently, I don't know if I told you this, Neil, but I've recently segued into some producing too, just because publicists are producers. We are putting people together and making things happen. So one of the things that I started to do is I'm working on a feature right now, but of course that takes a million years, but at least I understand how the process works, and leaning into some television, or I guess we call it streaming now. But one of the things that the Netflixes and the Apples of the world want to see is, who are you? Who are your followers? If I Google you, what's the first thing that comes up? And if there's nothing written about you, then we're already in trouble. So you also need to, as Neil would say, build the brand, build the visibility, because if you don't, then nobody knows who you are. And then that's a huge disconnect in the room if you're trying to create content.
Okay. Okay. So basically, Amy, best place we can connect with you. Where can we go?
You can go to my website, theprennergroup.com, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook at theprennergroup.com.
All right. And you can go.
Awesome talking with you. I'm excited.
Absolutely. And go Kelly Springer's, go to kellyschoice.org, or also pick up your book. It's your book, Kelly.
Yep. You can go to Amazon, look at the new weight loss era, info and printable and also Audible. So we're really excited for that. And Amy, fantastic guest. I learned so much.
Carly, do you have a book trailer for your book?
No.
Do you know what that is?
No.
Very important thing for anybody who writes a book. I'm going to leave you with a little secret sauce.
Okay.
A book trailer is like a movie trailer. It's about 60 to 90 seconds in length. It shows you and who you are, and you put whatever music behind it and pull back the curtain on why you wrote the book in that amount of time. Because remember, we're living in a world where people don't read. So if you can zhuzh up what you're doing with the book trailer, show the cover, show you, talk about been featured on Good Morning America and blah, 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 blah. And that is the fastest way to get someone's attention in what you're doing. And people don't know that, but I've released so many books. And the first thing I always tell people is like, where's your book trailer? Because that's what's going to open the door.
All right.
Thank you for that little tip. I appreciate it.
All right. That was
examples
fantastic. That was the special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and Talk Nutrition to Me with Kelly Springer. Take care, guys.